Good morning, English class online. Today I will be presenting my fallacy piece about gangs through my presentation, and I'll be talking about my presentation. So, for my first slide, I introduce my fallacy piece, which is an article written by Casper Walsh, which is called Gangs Are Good for Society. Now, right off the bat, I knew that this would be the perfect piece for my fallacy piece because just from what I know about gangs, I grew up in the Lower East Side, New York City, where there was gangs, and I knew that for a fact that gangs are not good for society. So I chose this as my fallacy piece. And so this fallacy piece claims, that gangs help gang members to learn boundaries and to become well-rounded citizens of their community. So this presentation will be presenting some critical facts about gangs, which will prove this fallacy piece to be false. Gangs offhand are one of the biggest issues that we have today in America, in urban societies mostly, or low-income societies, however you want to put it. And I just want to address who are the kinds of people that join gangs and why. The social impact that gangs have on those who join them is tremendously negative on so many aspects of gang members' lives, and even even the lives of people who are not a part of the gangs. Being in a gang can set you up to believing this is the only way of life. And it can also have crucial consequences like sentence to jail time and even death. Not just death of the gang member, but also death of the gang member's family and friends, and even people who may have no involvement with that gang, and they can just simply be at the wrong place at the wrong time. Some of the issues that we're going to be addressing through this presentation are what kind of voids are in a person's life that a person who joins a gang is trying to fulfill. What happened to these gang members as a child that led them to the street? Where were their family members or parental guidance? Unfortunately, most times in low-income households, there can be stress in the parents, which can lead to unloving atmospheres for their children. For example, some examples can be single father or motherhood, sexual and physical abuse, drug abuse, lack of employment, poor living conditions, and the list can go on and on. When a child has an unloving and unsafe atmosphere at home, this leads to them going out and looking for that love, that bond, that security elsewhere, and it starts at a very young age. In another article by Taylor, it mentioned in his research paper on gangs that when a troubled child is introduced to a gang-populated community or environment, the potential for gang membership is very high. Many children who come from a troubled home are simply looking to fit in, and the gang lifestyle offers that. But to address the fallacy piece, are gangs good for society? According to Casper Walsh, in his article, Gangs Are Good for Society, Walsh explains how him being in a gang helped him to learn boundaries and to be a better adolescent. He quoted, "I was part of a gang in school, and it was all about belonging to a group. It had nothing to do with fighting other gangs. It's when gangs start using violence to control turf and territory and make money that we need to take action." Casper also claims that the use of the word gang is a foul label that only worsen the problem with the misbehaving of youth epidemic. "I put the blame for the demeaning of the word gang squarely on the money-hungry, narrative-driven media to ramp up our fear of the fiction of gangs dominating every street corner. So here's some facts about real gangs. Because honestly, the gang that Walsh seemed to be a part of seemed more like an after-school program. Fact one about gangs is gangs usually involve violence and is the main theme of the gang itself. Gangs itself are connected to crime, and to be in one usually means that you have to have a certain machismo about you, or machoism. To be in a gang usually means that you have certain qualities about yourself that non-gang members do not have, such as being violent, ruthless, heartless, and cold to your enemies. And you must also be ready to lay your life down for your fellow brothers, even sisters in your gang. For most gangs to even get into the gang, you have to be jumped in, which means you have to be beat up by all of the gang members. And once you yourself are a member, you have to be willing to jump in those who want to join your gang. Fact number two, being from a broken home is one of the main reasons people join gangs. Gangs can have a lot to offer to someone who feels abandoned and unloved at home. Like a way to make large amounts of money in a small period of time. And it also offers family love strength, where at home they may be made to feel weak. According to article Why American Boys Join Gangs, home life plays a huge role. Given the importance of the family as mentioned earlier, the evolution from family through to a boy's entry into school and neighborhood environment is important in understanding children who join gangs. In the lives of study respondents, it was clear that the potential for oppositional defiance, conduct disorder, and the acting out of frustrations due to home life were increased by lack of consistent normative family interactions. And then I also go on to show some images of gangs, and they don't look happy and jolly. There's also a picture of, which really broke my heart, a baby sleeping on the bed with a bunch of money, which is probably drug money, and also a bunch of guns. And it's crazy. And it's a perfect example of how gangs can affect even the innocent at home when the gang members decide to bring their paraphernalia home with them. So why do people join gangs? Here are some reasons. To receive respect from those who also live in their community and even outside of their community. The gang they join allowed them to have safety from other dangers like gangs. That coming from living in an urban neighborhood, otherwise known as low-income areas, gang life is very active. Joining the gang gave these members freedom to intimidate other non-gang members of the community to show who's boss, or gain respect from those in the community. And this also may make them feel like they have respect when they're not getting respect at home. It also will help them to make them feel worthy of themselves, since they were maybe getting molested at home or other kinds of physical or verbal abuse. Family life can be so dysfunctional that turning to the streets seems like the only way to make life better, even though it may get worse. Being in a gang promotes, of course, their machoism, as I mentioned. The illegal activities allows them to forget about what is actually going on in their hearts and minds. They can make lots of money and attract girls, which can make them seem cool. And also they can release all that anger that's built up inside of them through illegal activity. And I also show some pictures of girl gangs, because I spoke about machoism, I don't want you to think that gangs are just for men. There's a lot of girl gangs, like since the 19th century and maybe beyond that. There's one all-girl gangs called the 40 Elephants, and they were around in the 19th and 20th century in England. And then I also show a picture of the Suki Band gang, consisting of all girls, and they're in Japan. But that's a more recent gang. Victimization is a huge part of gang life, whether you are in a gang or you're not even a gang member. One consistent finding was gang members themselves were often victims of gang-related violence through victimization, which involves gang members and non-gang members alike. And that came from Taylor Peterson from his article in 2007. He also found that gang members are a higher risk for experiencing several types of violent victimization, and half of gang-affiliated youth encountered one or more general victimizations over 1 year period. So in conclusion, I'm going to end here. Gangs and gang violence hit societies globally every day, and this research paper and presentation sheds some light on the details of how gangs and gang violence can affect any community. It also highlights the real truths that are totally opposite to the gangs are good for society fallacy. The havoc that gang members cause can bring a lot of pain and inconvenience to those affected by it. But we also have to remember that those who are in gangs are just like you and me. They have had their hearts broken, and even though their outward appearance says otherwise, they still need gentle, loving care, just like the rest of us. The only difference is they put a wall up around them, wall of protection around them, which includes the gangs that they decide to join. Excuse me. Casper was onto something good when he wrote his article, Gangs Are Good for Society, because it showed his compassion for gang members. Of course, being a part of one in his youth probably helped with that. But the fact of the matter is that we can still work to help troubled youth without them being a part of a gang. That is where things like after-school programs come into play, or Boys and Girls Club, where youth can be a part of their community in a safe place, learn boundaries, and still be in right standing with the law. Okay, class, this concludes my video presenting my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you everyone for watching, and God bless. Bye.